This lesson is on inscribed angles. The goal is to find the measure of inscribed angles, and the standard is geometry circles number 2, number 3, and number 4. What you should understand by the end of this lesson is that angles formed by intersecting lines have a special relationship to the arcs the intersecting lines intercept. This lesson will look at arcs formed by inscribed angles. Okay, an inscribed angle is an angle whose vertex or pointed end is on the side of the angle, or is on the side of the circle, and whose sides or chords are inside the circle. So if you see this angle, it starts here at A, the vertex is at point C, and the other chord or segment is here and ends at B. So there is this angle ACB. It's all inside of the circle, and the vertex is on the side of the circle. That's called an inscribed angle. Now, this outside arc, or the arc between points A and B, is called the intercepted arc. So in this diagram, inscribed angle C intercepts arc AB. So where do you feel like you are on the scale? A 1, 2, 3, or 4? Put this at the top of your notes, and we'll get on with the video. And hopefully you'll be better by the end. Now our first theorem, or theorem of the inscribed angle, is that the measure of the inscribed angle, or the measure of that, is 1/2 the measure of the intercepted arc. So no matter what the measure of this intercepted arc is, which is the same measure as the central angle, the inscribed angle is 1/2 of that measure. Now here are 3 different corollaries to that theorem. The first one is that if you have 2 inscribed angles and that they intercept the same arc, so here's the intercepted arc and there are my 2 inscribed angles, if you have them, those 2, then they are congruent. So angle A and angle B are congruent. The second corollary is any angle inscribed in a semicircle, that means along the diameter, is a right triangle or right angle. But it forms a right triangle. And the third corollary is that the opposite angles of a quadrilateral inscribed in a circle are supplementary, or they equal 180 degrees. Opposite angles equal 180 degrees. The other theorem is that the measure of an angle formed by a tangent, remember a tangent is a line that touches the circle in exactly one place, but the measure of an angle formed by a tangent and a chord is 1/2 the measure of the intercepted arc. So here's the tangent line going this way. So angle C is 1/2 of that measure. When the tangent line C is going out this way, this is my intercepted arc, and angle C is 1/2 of that measure. Alright, the first kind of questions you're going to be asked is, what is the measure of angle W? This is angle W. Well, they give us angle T, which is 66. If you remember, central angles and their arcs, intercepted arcs, have the same measure. And angle T, which is this one, is 1/2 that. So all I have to do is take 66 times 2, because 66 is 1/2 of whatever that is. So I'm going to multiply it times 2, and I get 132. So if I To make sure I'm right, I just take half of 132. And I see that it is 66. So the measure of angle W is 132 degrees. Your practice 1, what is the measure of angle W? Practice 2, what is the measure of angle PRQ? The next kind of question that you're going to see is what is the measure of GIH? So they're asking us what is the measure of angle I? Well, it is going to be 1/2 of the central angle or 1/2 of the intercepted arc. To figure this out, we have to look at these two sections. This whole circle equals 360. So I have to take 360 minus 119 and 111. Well, I add up 119 plus 111 and I get 230. Then I take 360 minus 230 and that gives me 130. Now 130 is the measure of the central angle or the same measure as the intercepted arc. Now to find the measure of angle I, I'm going to take 130 and divide it in half. When I take 130 and divide it in half, I get 65 degrees. So the measure of angle GIH is 65 degrees. Your practice 3 is what is the measure of angle IJK? The next kind of question you're going to see, this one says, what is the measure of angle VUW? So this is my inscribed angle. They're looking for the measure of U. And here is my central angle. Here is my intercepted arc. So to find the measure of my central angle or my intercepted arc, I notice that I have a straight line. These two angles add up to 180. So I have to take 180 minus the 68 degrees. That gives me 112. So the measure of the central angle is 112 degrees. To find the measure of angle U, I have to divide that in half. So I take 112, divide it in half, and I get 56 degrees. So the measure of angle VUW is 56 degrees. Your practice number 4 is what is the measure of angle HGI? Now, one of the corollaries that we looked at said that if you have two inscribed angles coming from the same intercepted arc, that they were congruent. The question is, what is the value of x? To find the value of x, because these are congruent, I make them equal to each other. So I have 2x plus 54 equals x plus 55. I subtract x from both sides. I have x plus 54 equals 55. I subtract 54 from both sides. I'm sorry, I wrote 54. That should be 55. I subtract 54 from both sides, and x equals 1. So the value of x is 1. And if you plug 1 back in, I end up with 1 plus 55 is 56. And over here, 2 times 1 is 2, and 2 plus 54 is 56, and 56 equals 56. So 1 is the correct answer. Here's your practice 5. It's asking for what is the measure of angle Q. So after you find the value of x, you need to plug it back in to this angle to find the measure of angle Q. And the final kind of problem you're going to see in this lesson, the question asks, what is the measure of angle HGI? Now, they've given us two algebraic expressions, one for the inscribed angle, one for the central angle. So the formula, or what you're going to do to be able to solve this, is you are going to take 2 times the inscribed angle and make it equal to the central angle. And then you solve for your variable, and we're going to have to plug it back in and multiply. In this case, we're going to multiply it times 2 to find the measure of angle HGI. So I have to multiply 2 times the inscribed angle. Well, 2 times 2 is 4. So I have 4x equals, the central angle is x plus 63. I subtract 1x from both sides. I get 3x equals 63. When I divide both sides by 3, I'm left with x equals 21. The question asks, what is the measure of angle HGI? And it says it's 2 times x. Well, 2 times 21 equals 42. Now I'm going to come back up here to make sure if 42 is half of that central angle, it should be 84. So I'm going to take x is 21. 21 plus 63 is 84. And half of 84 is 42. So the measure of the inscribed angle is 42 degrees. So that answer is right. So once you get an answer, just check it to make sure it's right. Here's your final practice problem. It is, what is the measure of angle UTV? Make sure that you use my formula from the problem I did, which is 2 times the inscribed angle equals the central angle. And you have to take 2 times everything that you see. So before you start the lesson, or before you start your assignment, where do you think you are now? 1, 2, 3, or 4? Put that at the bottom of your assignment or at the bottom of your notes, and go do your IXL assignment. And as they say in German, Auf Wiedersehen.